Now it's my pleasure to introduce to you Terry Lemerond. I've known Terry Lemerond for almost 20 years and have found him to be one of the most knowledgeable and health-passionate people that I have ever met in my life. He's a retailer, an author, an educator, and an entrepreneur. He has more than 40 years of experience in this industry, working with natural products, designing formulations. He's developed over 400 formulas, and many of them continue to be top-selling products on the market today. His personal website dedicated to health and nutrition is terrytalksnutrition.com, and that website is a sponsor of today's webinar. And so it is with great pleasure I introduce to you Mr. Terry Lemerond. Welcome, Terry.
Have all made this webinar possible. Well, I have a very big job to do today. I have a job of kind of reinventing the last 4 or 5 decades of misconceptions and misunderstandings of how we eat today. So this is going to be a focus on fats. Learn to eat like Terry. Well, you'll learn to eat like I am eating today, but I don't expect you after this webinar to start eating like Terry. I want to have this opportunity to share with you some ideas as to how you can start changing the way you are eating today. This is not a diet like a weight loss diet. Diet just means the foods we eat every day. And we should be eating foods every day that are healthy. If you look at America, we are eating a diet that is unhealthy. 70% of Americans, I should say that, let me put it this way. America consumes 70% of their diet in terms of carbohydrates and sugar. And all those carbohydrates convert to sugar, so 70% of the American diet is sugar. We have been misled, and we have been have a misconception of what fats really mean to us. There is no concrete evidence, no clinical studies that shows healthy fats. Now, there are bad fats for us, of course, and we'll talk about that as well, but fats in general are not bad for us. But in the 50s, 1950s, a doctor by the name of Ansel Keys did an observational study that's just observing something, not proving anything. And he was a very powerful educator at the University of Minnesota, and he convinced everybody that fats were bad for us by his observational study. No scientific study, no human study, no animal study. No study was proven to show that fats were bad for us. And many people believe that by eating fats, we're going to get fatter. Well, you can see from the last 4, 5, 6 decades, when we were led to believe that fats were bad for us, and America gave up fats. Everything is low fat, no fat, skim milk. All the foods we eat today pretty much eliminate fats. And the fats we do include in some of our prepared foods are the bad fats. But in general, in the last 6 or 7 decades, when we've gone on this low-fat binge, everybody got fatter. Obesity, overweight is an epidemic in America. 18% of our children are obese. And if we continue on the same trend as we are today, by the year 2030, 50% of all Americans will be obese. So it is not fats that are causing us to become fat. It's the sugar and the carbohydrates. Because remember, and we don't have a lot of time today to talk about all the reasons why fats and carbohydrates make these chemical changes in our body, but I want to bring out some of these facts to have you start thinking about how you can change your health. Carbohydrates and sugar provide energy. But if we do not burn those calories for energy, they're stored in our body as fat. So, yes, we gave up fats because we heard fats are bad for us, but all the calories that we come into our body from carbohydrates and sugar are now stored as fats, and that's why we have belly fat. That's why we have obesity. That's why many people are 20, 30, 40 pounds overweight, and that is a form of saturated fat, the same fats doctors tell us is bad for us. But we're generating those forms of saturated fats by the carbohydrates and the sugar that we are consuming. Diet is important for us. I take a lot of supplements. I believe in herbal medicines. I believe in curcumin. I believe in boswellia. I believe in grapeseed extract. All the vitamins and all the minerals and all the various supplements that I take because I believe in them and I think they are important to my health, but they are supplements. That means they are a supplement to something else. And that something else is a proper diet. Diet is number one. We can't eat a poor diet and take supplements thinking that is going to make up for the deficit of the bad diet. We have to start with a healthy diet first. That is number one. From all the research I've done and all the research our team has done, 80 to 90, even up to 95% of all of our diseases, what doctors are treating today with drugs, is caused by our diet. Either because we don't eat the right food, and it causes us to have deficits of certain nutrients, vitamins and minerals, and we're not eating the foods that have plentiful antioxidants and anti-inflammatories. So we are creating our diseases by our lifestyle choices in our diet. 35 to 40% of all cancer is caused by our lifestyle choices and our diet. Either not eating the right foods or eating too much of the bad foods. 30% of our cancers is caused by smoking, tobacco products. And the rest is caused by chemicals and pollution and pesticides and sprays and all these things that we may not be able to control, but we can control tobacco and our diet. And today it's going to be how do we control our diet to be healthy. And I'm not saying you will learn how I eat and why I eat this way, but it's taken me a long time to understand that as well. I have tried every diet you can imagine. I've tried the raw food diet. I've tried the macrobiotic diet. I've tried the all rice diet. I've tried the vegetarian diet. I've tried the vegan diet. And while that works for some people, and some people will do well on various types of diets, but generally speaking, I think what I have learned and what I'm going to share with you today is one of the best ways to consume your diet for good health. And we'll learn a few things that absolutely, if you don't eat like Terry, and I'm not saying you should, I'm saying that maybe you'll learn something from this, but there are a couple of things that I want you to take away from this, and by the time at the end of the program, I think I'll make my point on a couple points that I want you to always take away with you. 3 macronutrients. Okay, we have proteins, we have carbohydrates, and we have fats. Every time we eat food, we're going to eat primarily one of these or a complex of these. Proteins generally are all proteins. They can convert to sugar because everything we eat converts to sugar to a certain extent because that's the way the body uses fuel is with sugar and carbohydrates. But we get an excess of some foods in the absence of other foods, and that's what causes all the problems. So we want to have a good ratio of these 3 macronutrients: protein, carbohydrates, and fats. And we'll learn what I believe is the correct ratio. And maybe if you're young and if you're relatively healthy, sometimes these ratios aren't as important. But if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, I want to show you how you can shrink these ratios so that you can regain your health faster. And there are many, many people today, doctors, experts, medical experts, who have the same opinion of how to change the diet. So fat is extremely important. We can't live without fat. We can't live without cholesterol. They've taken away fat, or at least that is the mantra, is low fat. Fat is bad for us. Fat causes heart disease and strokes. Nonsense. Fats do not cause heart disease and strokes. Cholesterol, a type of fat, does not cause heart disease or strokes. Fat is needed for proper functioning of the brain and nervous system. Our brain is 60% fat. Our brain is only 2% of the entire body weight, but uses 25% of the cholesterol that our body makes. We need fat, we need cholesterol to be healthy. And they have maligned fat and cholesterol as being dangerous. That mantra, saying fats and cholesterol is dangerous in itself. Cholesterol manufactures, we need cholesterol to manufacture all of our sex hormones, estrogen and testosterone, our adrenal hormones, our vitamin D. We can't manufacture these important nutrients without cholesterol. Our brain functions on cholesterol. Have you noticed we've lowered cholesterol arbitrarily? You just, lower the better, lower the better. I ran into an individual that he said, I feel so terrible. I have so much muscle pain. He said, I can't think. I have fatigue, and my cholesterol is 106. Now, the World Health Organization, WHO, has stated that our cholesterol level, healthy cholesterol level, is between 220 and 240. Now, even a little bit lower or a little bit higher, it makes no difference. Many of the alternative physicians that I have talked to regarding the cholesterol levels, no alternative physician will treat cholesterol. One gentleman told me that the only time, and he's a medical expert, a medical doctor, he says the only time I give somebody a drug to lower cholesterol is when it has reached 1,000. Not 200 or 220 or 230 or 240, 1,000, which is a genetic defect. The cholesterol level seeks the level which is actually the proper ratio for the individual that has that cholesterol level. Fat is a better source of energy, more sustained and long-lasting energy than sugar. We have more diseases caused by sugar and carbohydrates. Point number one, take that away with you. If you do nothing other than listen to this program and walk away and say, I'm not eating like Terry, don't eat sugar and don't eat refined carbohydrates and lower your carbohydrates in general. Most experts believe that our levels of carbohydrates should be no more than 70 to 75 grams of carbohydrates daily. Fats are extremely essential during pregnancy for the development of the baby, for milk production by the nursing mother. Now, for decades, we are told to stay away from fats. Fat-free yogurt. Never buy fat-free yogurt. Buy full fat. You know, I don't know of any cow that gives fat-free milk. No nursing mother is able to give her infant fat-free milk. Breast milk is 50% fat. We need the fat in dairy products to digest the minerals, the calcium, and other nutrients. It's part of what nature includes for us to be able to absorb the proteins and the minerals of the fat, of the dairy products. So fat-free this and fat-free that, and all these other snacks and chips and yogurt and milk. You know, you've got 2%, you've got skim milk, you've got fat-free. That's not the way nature ever includes proteins and fats. They're always together. No cholesterol. Now the bad news. Cholesterol is good news. We need cholesterol to be healthy. So the consequences of fat fear. Americans have stayed away from saturated animal fat. Consumption dropped by 11%. Carbohydrate intake has gone up 25% since the 1970s. Grain consumption has increased 50% since the 1970s. Starch. A meat packing industry did a research study on how to fatten pigs and cows, because fatter pigs and cows bring in more money. So they wanted to increase the weight of the animals. So they fed them proteins and fats. You would think they would get fatter, and so did they think they would get fatter. They lost their appetite, they leaned out, and they lost weight. So the answer was, what do they feed cows and pigs today? Corn, starch, because it increases fat content and they get fatter over time. Vegetable oils now make up 7 to 8% of our diet versus 0 back in the early 1900s. We didn't have soybean oil, corn oil, or all of these vegetable oils in the early 1900s. What did we have? We had butter. We had lard. We had bacon fat. All of these good saturated fats, because vegetable oils are polyunsaturated. That means they have a lot of open bonds in their chain of oils that can become rancid easily, and they are very high in omega-6, which is pro-inflammatory, causes inflammation. Americans are inflamed. As one author put it, the nation of inflammation. Saturated fat is very stable, does not go rancid easily. So these are the really good quality fats that we gave up because somebody, from an observational point of view, said, oh, I think fats are bad for us, so everybody gave up fats. Saturated fat is not the cause of heart disease. Now we're finally coming around to the other side of the merry-go-round, because everything goes in a cycle. So now the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, they do a meta-analysis. So they look at a number of studies, and then they try to draw a conclusion from all of those studies to come up with one new study. So an analysis of 21 studies involving almost 350,000 people who were followed for up to 23 years. Conclusion: people who consume the most saturated fat did not have a higher risk of heart disease, stroke, or any other cardiovascular disease. More than 20 studies have shown that people who have heart attacks don't eat more saturated fat than healthy people. And by the way, the people who have the lowest cholesterol levels have more heart attacks than people with high cholesterol levels. The number is 63% of those that have a heart attack have what doctors consider to be low cholesterol. Cholesterol is our friend, not the enemy. It keeps us healthy. Every cell in our body has cholesterol. 8 studies have shown that people with stroke have eaten less saturated fat than healthy people. Now here's the bottom line. No dietary study has succeeded in lowering heart disease deaths by reducing the intake of saturated fat. Animal fat, butter, lard, cream, eggs. They've done study with many different populations, feeding them several eggs a day, up to 6 eggs a day, and one study was up to 12 eggs a day with no difference in cholesterol levels, no increased risk of heart disease or strokes. New study results. The April issue of the British Medical Journal. Now these are very prestigious journals. The reanalysis of data from a study including almost 10,000 people half of the participants had their intake of saturated fat replaced with vegetable oil. That would be like corn oil, soybean oil, safflower seed oil, sunflower seed oil, while the rest 80 diet high in animal fat. Result, a diet high in vegetable oil led to lower cholesterol levels, and a greater, not a reduced risk of dying. The higher the intake of vegetable oil, the greater the increase in death risk. Our diet today, after 60 years of the no-fat mantra, is the worst diet we could possibly have today. We are the fattest country in the world. I just came back from traveling through Europe, and I very rarely see a really obese person, and they're all on their bikes, they're all doing some type of activity, not jogging, not in gyms, not running, but just daily activity, and they are not overweight. The researchers also looked at other randomized controlled trials and found no evidence anywhere to support the hypothesis that vegetable oils stop heart disease. The manufacturers just love to find a new way to push their products. And they turn science upside down. If they hear one little thing about vegetable oils doing something in a certain way, they jump on the bandwagon and they start a new advertising campaign, and most ads go against the grain of science. They change the way Americans live and eat, but science doesn't support it. Here's what you should know and be worried about. Artificial trans fats. Here's where we really made, even if you think about natural products, butter is natural. Butter, if you get grass-fed butter, it's loaded with vitamin A, loaded with vitamin E, has great benefits. So they said fat from butter is dangerous. So they made margarine, synthetic fat, made in a laboratory, where butter is healthy, natural, and it does not cause any problems within our body. Where margarine, and how can you say real margarine, is synthetic? Artificial trans fats have been known for decades to cause heart disease. But manufacturers did not want to face the fact, did not want to know that their products caused heart disease, so they actually blacklisted scientists, blackballed them, and said, you will never get another grant for doing research in your institution if you come forward and say trans fats are bad. But about 80% of trans fats in the typical diet comes from factory, not nature. Factory produced partially hydrogenated vegetable oils. Hydrogenation. It's a chemical process where they use hydrogen and nickel, a mineral, nickel, in which the hydrogen atoms are added to a liquid vegetable fat and then catalyzed with nickel to change it to a solid fat. It's synthetic. It's artificial, made in a laboratory. And they're trying to tell us that it's better for us? So how dangerous are trans fats? Well, in Denmark, where it has been illegal for foods to contain more than 2% trans fat since 2004, deaths from heart disease have dropped by 20%. A 2006 study found that for each additional 2% of calories consumed as trans fats, risk of heart disease nearly doubled. Trans fats depletes good cholesterol, the HDL, that's our good stuff, which helps protect against heart disease. And research on margarine, for each teaspoon of margarine consumed each day, risk of heart disease increased by 10%. Just think of that. Just 1 teaspoon increases the risk of heart disease by 10%. And Dr. Ansel Keys and his buddies that jumped on the bandwagon of low fat, and then everybody jumped on the synthetic fats, the hydrogenated fats, hydrogenated peanut butters, hydrogenated margarines, hydrogenated shortenings. They started us on a journey of heart disease because of what they have turned us onto when we could have been protected by saturated fats. They turned the world upside down. Long-term margarine consumption by women was associated with a 67% increased risk of heart disease. Heart disease is the #1 killer. But our diet is a diet that leads us to heart disease and increases our risk of heart disease by eating a low-fat, no-fat, trans fats, hydrogenated fats. That's what put us onto the journey of increased heart disease risks. I love fats. I eat a lot of fat every day. Now, my diet is primarily made up of proteins and fats with minimal carbohydrates. Many years ago, when I was in my late teens and early 20s, I weighed well over 250 pounds. I had very severe hypoglycemia. I was following a junk food diet. I was only a product of my diet. I had severe depression, worried about everything, angry about everything, unhappy, belligerent. You know, I think today, and I personally am convinced that all the problems that we're having today with the shootings and the killings are due to our poor diet today and the amount of drugs we are consuming, trying to make up for making up for the diet that we are consuming. Now, 60 years later, I don't consume the carbohydrates because I'm intolerant to them. I don't do well with carbohydrates, so I've eliminated them. Only a very, very small portion of my diet comes from carbohydrates, and they are in the way of berries, low sugar fruits, and vegetables. No grains, no crackers, no breads, none of the carbohydrates that typically Americans consume as their daily diet. And I do more today than I did 60 years ago. I travel extensively. Sometimes I'm in Europe 2 or 3 times a month. I work out. I'm in the office by 5:30. I love what I do. And your diet is what makes everything possible. It's our fuel. If you take your car and you put gas in your gas tank and then you add a little bit of sugar, a little bit of sand, you're going to destroy your car. And it's exactly what we are doing today. We are destroying our bodies by putting in poor fuel and expecting to get out good performance. It's not going to happen. So I consume proteins, sometimes 2, 3, 4, 5 eggs a day, meat, fish, bison, all the animal proteins, coconut oil, olive oil, sesame seed oil, avocado oil, which are the best oils to consume, butter, as much as I prefer. In the morning, sometimes I'll have a cup of coffee with butter, actually blend it in with coconut oil or MCT oil. You'll have energy galore. People that are tired and sick and tired of being sick and tired, it's because they're relying on carbohydrates. Change the diet. Get rid of grains. If you want to read a couple of good books, read Grain Brain by Dr. David Perlmutter. why grains are bad for us today. He's a neurologist. He studies the brain, and he studies people who have Parkinson's disease, MS, ALS, and it comes from the neurological disorders based on our diet. Dr. William Davis wrote the book Wheat Belly. 2 great books to read. The other one is to read Not by Bread Alone. These are excellent books to read to understand why we should make this transition from no fat to fats and from high carbohydrates to low carbohydrates. Now, sesame oil. In a group of people with high blood pressure, despite taking prescription drugs for lowering their blood pressure, using sesame seed oil for cooking for 2 months reduced their average blood pressure to normal ranges. Has also been found to promote weight loss. Coconut oil. You could write books and books and books on why coconut oil is a miracle oil. Helps you lose weight, gives you a tremendous amount of energy, destroys viruses, bacteria, and fungi. It's a antimicrobial. It has tremendous benefits. Now, you don't want to use hydrogenated coconut oil that was used in some studies to malign coconut oil. You want to use the good virgin coconut oil. Excellent for cooking and baking. So my favorite, of course, is olive oil. And you want to get an olive oil that has a little bit of, well, it tickles your throat. If you swallow olive oil by the spoonful, as I do, I always take 2 or 3 tablespoons of olive oil every morning, like medicine, because I think food is our medicine. It has always been told that food is our best medicine, and it truly is. Start with food. Change your diet. If you're going to live the same diet that is causing you to feel the way you are, and buy supplements, and I want you to buy supplements because I think they're important for you, but you can't eat a diet that is causing you to be where you are in terms of your health and then add supplements to think you're going to get some headway. So virgin olive oil is a miracle. It's a medicine. Researchers followed more than 4,000 women for almost 5 years. 1, 80 normal diet. 1 ate the Mediterranean diet plus nuts. Group 3 followed the Mediterranean diet plus olive oil. The women adding nuts to their diet saw a reduction in breast cancer risk. But the women adding an amazing 62% reduction in their breast cancer risk. So when you add the olive oil in the nuts, you have a tremendous reduction in breast cancer risk. Now we're not talking drugs. We're talking just food. Food is amazing. We don't even know what's in food that we eat today. When you take vitamins and minerals, we can only put into manufactured products the vitamins and minerals that we know today. We may not have discovered hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of nutrients in our food today because nobody cares what's in our food today because manufacturers want to sell drugs and prepared synthetic foods. That's where the money comes from. Who cares what's in our diet? Do they ever tell you to change your diet? How many times have your doctor said, well, we got to change your diet before I put you on this drug because maybe the diet will be better for you than the drug? And in many cases, changing your diet the correct way is more important than the drugs they're going to prescribe for you. And all drugs are poison, and almost all drugs cause cancer and death. So every time you take a drug, you could be one of those statistics of having cancer from the drug or dying. So we want to make sure that our diet is of the highest quality. Olive oil reduces cardiovascular disease, reduces cancer. And get a really good olive oil that tickles your throat. By that I mean when you swallow it, you get a little peppery sensation in your throat because that peppery sensation is based on the level of what we call polyphenols, which is a group of bioflavonoids that is it's a vitamin. It's a nutrient for your health. but all good virgin olive oil is important, but I use one that makes my throat tickle, which is really good for you. Olive oil reduces the risk of heart disease. These are all studies, but nobody wants to put these in the Press Gazette. Nobody wants to put this in the news. Nobody wants to put this in your daily newspaper. Nobody wants you to know this stuff. Drugs are more important. Brings in a lot of money. They have a lot of press releases. They have a lot of PR. They control the government. You can't recommend anything that's natural or a food to have an effect on the body to get well. It's only drugs that have that distinction of being able to say it can do something for you. Clinical trials. Participants ate a standardized diet plus either extra virgin olive oil or corn or soy oil for 3 months. At the end of the study, the olive oil group saw a 5% decrease in blood pressure. Corn oil or the soybean oil group was unchanged. The olive oil group saw an increase in the good cholesterol. The corn oil and the soybean oil saw a decrease in the good cholesterol. Plus, the olive oil group improved immune cell production and no change in the vegetable oil group. So, buy real virgin olive oil. To get real Italian extra virgin olive oil, read the label closely to be sure the oil is produced in Italy. Consider buying direct from an Italian producer. Real Italian is more expensive. $7 a bottle is probably not Italian extra virgin olive oil. It's probably the 3rd or 4th pressing of the olives. It's the byproduct of the good olive oil. It should smell fruity and taste like olives. Store in a container that protects oil from light in a dark place. Don't buy olive oil in a white bottle, in a plain glass, white, transparent bottle. Never keep olive oil in a plastic container. It can leach chemicals from the plastic. Olive oil is not like wine. It doesn't get better with age, so use it often and with a generous hand. But olive oil can stay stable for a long period of time compared to vegetable oils because of the polyphenols, because of the nutrients that are there. And most of them are stone pressed. But we pointed out in this slide about Italian oil. But you can get great Spanish oil. You can get great French oil. You can get great oils from California. I just pointed this out because of the Italian extra virgin olive oil. But you can get olive oil around the world. Just look for extra virgin and maybe even question the manufacturer if you choose. I also love milk, whole milk. For decades, Americans have been advised to drink reduced or fat-free milk. In 1975, 36 million pounds of whole milk sold in the United States. 2014, 14 million pounds of whole milk. That's almost, a third. 15,000 adults, researchers looked at the connection between the dairy product consumption and blood pressure, blood sugar, belly fat, and cholesterol and triglyceride levels. The results of the study, consumption of full-fat dairy products, full-fat dairy products was associated with lower risk of these conditions and lower risk of metabolic syndrome, the syndrome that causes type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. And separately, a review of studies on full-fat dairy consumption found that 18 of 25 studies associated with full-fat dairy with lower body weight, less weight gain, and reduced risk of obesity. At the end, you'll find fat is your friend. Cholesterol is your friend. They're not the enemy. Take a look at America, who has given up cholesterol, who has given up fat. And I really think, since we have lowered our fats, I have no science to prove this. It's just my personal opinion. But we've lowered the cholesterol. We've lowered the fats over the last 5 or 6 decades. Our brain needs fats and cholesterol. That's what it functions on. Women's breasts need proper hormone balance. Cholesterol and fats support hormone balance and brain function. Since we've lowered fats and lowered cholesterol, that's when Alzheimer's disease has skyrocketed to almost an epidemic condition in the elderly and even younger in the 50s. And breast cancer has skyrocketed. Obesity, lack of fats, lack of cholesterol. Could there be an association? I really think there is. So how do you find healthy fats? Is it a natural fat or a processed fat? Natural fats are primarily from animal fat or animal proteins associated with eating the proteins like beef, pork, chicken, bison, fish. All these are good quality fats, or nuts, or fruit, avocados. I try to have at least a half an avocado every day. Olives. I eat olives every day in their natural, unaltered form. I eat walnuts every day. I eat some form of nuts every day. You know, not in large quantities. Just to have to know if I want a snack, it's going to be a handful of walnuts. Now, processed fats have been changed. They've been altered with hydrogenation to make them fully or partially hydrogenated, trans fats that are solid at room temperature. These are the synthetic fats that we want to avoid. For example, they always talk about the Mediterranean diet being a healthy diet. And they say it's because they don't eat meat. Well, nobody has ever studied the Mediterranean diet in humans. A study to find out what that diet does to everybody else. So is it because they gave up meat? Or is it because they eat more nuts, more olives, more wine, more olive oil, more fats? I think it's because of what they eat, not what they have given up. And they say the Mediterranean diet is a low-fat diet. It's not a low-fat diet. It's a very high-fat diet. They eat a lot of seafood. They eat a lot of nuts. They eat a lot of olive oil. I've watched some of my friends in Spain and in Italy when I've gone out to eat with them. Well, I saw one gentleman putting so much olive oil on his salad that it almost started to swim in olive oil. It just started coming up to the top of the bowl. And I've had people tell me in olive oil regions that it was common in their family that when they left home for school, their mothers gave them like a shot glass full of olive oil because that was their medicine. Like in some Nordic countries, they give them that spoonful of cod liver oil. And in the olive growing regions, they give them olive oil. Fats are so important. You just can't think, well, some people say, Terry, I am overweight, I am fat, I shouldn't eat fat. It's not the same. It's what the chemistry does with it in our body, because when we eat fats, we're satisfied. When we eat sugar, we're never satisfied because that sugar is burned like a match, quick, and it's out. You strike a match, it only lasts for a few seconds. But when you burn a candle, it's going to burn for a long, long time. That's the difference between sugar and fats. Sugar is the match. The candle is fats. And when you eat fats, you're satisfied. You can't overeat, and you're not going to be hungry. In fact, they did a study at breakfast, and they gave people a good fat-filled breakfast. 2, 3, 4 eggs, cooked in olive oil or coconut oil or lard, butter, whatever you want. A couple of slices of good natural bacon, no nitrates or nitrites, no sugar, but good healthy bacon. Maybe one little small portion of a low sugar fruit, like maybe a half a grapefruit, or maybe a cup of coffee. That day, those persons who ate a high-fat diet ate 500 calories a day less because they were filled, they were happy, they were satisfied. They weren't eating sugar like a bowl of cold cereal that turns into sugar right away, or a Danish or some kind of a breakfast roll and with jam or something on it, and then all sugar, and then maybe a cup of coffee. Well, by 2-3 hours later, they're looking for something to eat. They're grazing all day on sugar because they're never satisfied. They're never filled up. They're never feel full. So my diet, my consumption is about 30% animal protein. So I consume animal fats of all, animal proteins of all kinds. I eat beef. I eat bison. I love lamb. That's only a personal preference. But all animal proteins are good for us. Fish, whatever you want. So bison, salmon, whatever, tuna, all the animal proteins. Eggs, I love eggs. Boiled eggs, poached eggs. I'll eat sometimes 6, 7, 8 eggs a day. Sometimes I'll have 2 or 3 eggs for breakfast in the morning. I might have 2 boiled eggs at lunch to grab something quick. And when I get home and I'm busy, I might just scramble 2 or 3 eggs with a couple pieces of cheese, maybe a handful of olives. I'll have a small green salad. You don't need carbohydrates. Carbohydrates make the pigs fat. And I have somewhere between 60% healthy fats. No artificial trans fats. Olive oil. I try to get 2, 3, 4 tablespoons a day out of olive oil. Now, I take it by the spoonful. Put it on your salads if you want. Put it in your smoothie if you want. Try to get 2, 3, 4 tablespoons a day of olive oil. I also add 2 or 3 tablespoons a day of MCT oil. MCT oil is the liquid portion of coconut oil. It's the medium-chained triglycerides. Energy. It does not convert to fat at all. It goes to the liver and causes an increase of energy. And it increases ketones in your brain so you can think better. And only about 10% of my intake is carbohydrates. And some days it's only 2 to 4%. And if I do have carbohydrates, it's from non-starchy carbohydrates, no potatoes, no beets, no carrots. I eat low-sugar fruits and vegetables, broccoli. I'll have a nice portion of meat. I'll have broccoli, a green salad, some cut-up sunflower seed sprouts, lots of olive oil on my salad, butter on my broccoli, and my portion of protein. And I try for anybody no more than 72 grams of carbohydrates daily. And whenever you shop for your carbohydrates, look on a glycemic index and try to use carbohydrates that are 50% or less. You look at an index and it's all these carbohydrates are evaluated from 0 to 100. And what they're trying to convey on these glycemic index is how fast that food that you have just consumed will convert to sugar. So if it's 50 and below, it converts very, very, very slowly. There's one food on that glycemic index that's very, very low. It's called fructose. It's a sugar. Never eat it. Avoid all fructose and all high fructose corn syrup. Avoid fructose because it's not natural. Even though, yes, we find it in our fruit, but that's the only way we should consume it. Fat and protein are really your friends. Don't be afraid of fat. It is so critical, and it's a critical source of your fuel. Dietary saturated fat is used as fuel, not stored, so it doesn't accumulate in the blood or tissues. All of our cardiovascular disease is caused by oxidative stress, oxidative cholesterol, and also because of the inflammation that it causes in our heart and in our arteries and blood vessels. High protein, not high carb. And when we say high protein, you know, some people say, oh, you're not eating carbs, then you must be eating a high protein diet. Well, it really isn't a high protein diet. We need about 1 gram of protein for every pound of body weight. So if you weigh 125 pounds, you need about 100 to 125 grams of protein. That's not high. That's just average. So it's not a high protein diet, it's just a low carb diet. In comparison studies of a high protein versus high carb diet in obese people, the high protein diet resulted in approximately 30% greater weight loss and 45% greater reduction in insulin levels. Now, this is not a way to live to lose weight. It's a way to live to have the best health of your life. And one of the side effects is that you'll drop weight like crazy. If you don't need to lose weight, you won't. But if you are overweight, you will lose weight like crazy. You'll feel fantastic. You'll have more energy. You'll feel great. You're going to get your youthfulness back. Absolutely. It's going to change your life. But it's not a weight loss diet per se. It's a health-promoting way to live and to eat. So it's going to make a huge difference for you. So here's some recommended reading. Wheat Belly, Dr. William Davis. Eat Fat and Get Thin by Dr. Mark Hyman. And Smart Fat by Johnny Bowden. And the other one I always like to read is Grain Brain by Dr. David Perlmutter. These are great books to read to actually show you the studies and the research and the scientific evidence behind why we should be eating more fat to be healthy. So we're here at questions. So we arrived at a good point to take a break.
Thanks so much, Terry. That was a lot of information to digest, if I can use that pun.
Yeah, well, excellent. I love it.
We have a lot of questions that have already started up in the queue. One of them has to do with what's your opinion of raw cow's milk and raw goat's milk?
Well, that's a very good question. I would only drink raw cow's milk and goat milk if it were available. It's not easy to find. I love goat milk, and I have been using raw goat milk for many, many years. And here's another pun. My source dried up, and the lady sold all her goats. And so I do drink goat milk that I buy at a health food store. And I also use plain goat yogurt. And I do very well with both. I don't do very well with cow milk, and that's just my preference because I do have a little bit of an allergy to cow milk. I don't digest the casein as well as I do with goat milk. But raw milk and in any form, whether it be cow or goat, is phenomenal. If you get it from a good source, and that's what I always would suggest, know your source, but I think it's very, very healthy. You know, the whole thing about worrying about bacteria and also some side effects of drinking raw milk. And, well, in the last several years, everything that has caused sicknesses have been from the vegetable family. Sprouts, melons, mushrooms, lettuce, spinach, and yet they don't ban those, but they ban the use of raw cow's milk. And I think it's just politics. I just think it's a political merry-go-round.
All right. Question about olive oil. This person says she has heard that even virgin olive oil goes rancid easily at room temperature. Do you refrigerate your olive oil even though it gets thick and cloudy?
No, I do not. I would never recommend to refrigerate olive oil. And there are studies on olive oil that says you can keep it on your countertop. I would close it. I would not leave it open, but you can leave it out for up to 2 years.
Oh, my.
It's very, very stable because of the polyphenols and the components that are in it, but I leave it right on my countertop, although it's not around very long because when I take 2 or 3 or 4 tablespoons a day, it goes through pretty fast. I go through a bottle at least every 2 weeks.
Here's a question. I don't know if you've heard about this or not, but they're asking, what's your opinion of Bragg's organic olive oil from Greece. Do you know anything about that kind?
I don't know. I've never tried. I know Patricia Bragg very well. I think she's a great lady. I think she tried to do her best. I don't know the oil. I have not tried the oil. I don't know it at all. But I think she's a pretty good lady, and I think, I would trust her.
Awesome. Questions? We had a lot of questions about olives, so I'm going to combine two. One is, do you eat both black and green olives? And the second question is, what do you look for when you're buying olives?
I just look for olives. I love all kinds. I eat green and black and purple, and just give me olives rather. I love the dried, the black dried ones. Olives in any form. Doesn't make any difference. They're all good. Just watch out they don't put any preservatives or ingredients in them, but they shouldn't, and enjoy them.
Here's back to milk again. What about using goat milk powder?
It's okay. I would rather buy just the regular goat milk that's pasteurized. Powder is okay, but it's okay. I don't have anything to say bad about it. I just don't like it myself personally.
And a question about almond milk. What do you think of almond milk?
The latest studies they did on almond milk was found that most almond milk products have only 2% almonds in it. That's not almond milk anymore.
Yeah.
I just don't care for the vegetable sources of milk. They're really not milk. They're liquid. They're liquid nuts. It's okay.
You'd rather eat your nuts as nuts, huh?
I'd rather eat my nuts as nuts, yes, absolutely.
All right. Here's a comment from a listener who says that Meyenberg makes a good whole milk goat powder, just as FYI.
They've been out for hundreds of years. They're a good source for it. So I would, if you're going to use the powder, that's a good place to use it. Also, there's another one that does too. There's another company called Mount Capra. They're out of the state of Washington, and they do all kinds of goat products. They have goat proteins, goat whey. They have the colostrum in capsules. They have goat powder. They have all kinds of things. They're a great company. All their animals are range-fed. Their products are organic. I would seek them out. They're very, very good. You can find them in health food stores, and you can also find them online, too.
Well, I have to insert a personal testimonial because just this year, I had tried goat's milk before and thought that the flavor was just too strong for me. And just this year, you convinced me to try some raw goat's milk and I tasted it. You said it would be creamy and delicious, and it was. It was one of the most luscious things that I have ever drunk in my life. It was so rich and so creamy and had such a wonderful flavor. So if there's those of you out there that are interested in goat's milk, but your only experience has been kind of the harsh, I don't know how to describe the taste, that harsh tasting goat's milk, just keep searching, because when you find a good quality one, the difference is night and day.
There are several good goat milk products and liquid milk that are sold in health food stores that are delicious. You can't tell the difference. There's no bad taste. There's no off taste. And I'm not a farmer by any means, but what I've learned from some of the farmers that have goats, that they said if the buck is in the same area of the does that are being milked, they'll take on that buck smell. And also from whatever they're being fed, they'll take on an odor. But a goat's milk does not have a bad taste at all.
Yeah. I was very pleasantly surprised. In fact, now I seek it out on purpose. When I go to the local health food store, I use their raw organic goat's milk mixed with coffee, and it is delicious. All right. A question, this is off topic a little bit, says if you're a young, healthy person, you don't have any specific health problems, but you want to stay healthy, do you have a couple of supplements you'd recommend?
Well, I do. In fact, make sure that you get all the vitamins and minerals that you need, because I really do think that botanical medicines are far more effective than drugs. If you get ones that are of the highest quality and that are of the dosages that are recommended by the scientific studies, botanical medicines are far more effective than drugs and don't have the side effects. That's a long story to talk about that. But they're not essential. But vitamins and minerals are extremely essential. And we may not be getting all the essential vitamins and minerals from the food we eat today because of the way it's stored and processed and shipped and stored and all the things that have a depletion process to our natural foods. Even all natural foods will lose some nutrients in a variety of ways, even pairing, cooking, and whatever. And we need all the vitamins and minerals. So I would seek out a really good vitamin and mineral supplement, not a one a day, because you can't put any meaningful levels of all the vitamins and minerals in a one tablet daily. So I would look for a product that would be somewhere between 2 to 4 tablets daily for all the vitamins and minerals you need in a good, meaningful level. And that's where I would start with it. I'd use that for 3 months and see how you feel. And then I would drop it down to maybe, say if you start off with 4 a day, then drop it down to maybe 1 or 2 a day after that just to maintain your levels. And you may not need any of the other natural botanical medicines like curcumin or grapeseed extract or boswellia or angelica, archangelica, all these natural herbs that are very powerful, helpful in situations where there may be need for it for indications that are unhealthy. The vitamins and minerals, they're essential. Natural botanical medicines are not essential.
Excellent. Great advice. All right. Here's a person who, I think it's a comment, but she says that she lives in New York City and it's very hard to get raw milk there. So I guess that she would have to probably buy some of the brands that are in the health food store, correct?
Well, even in the health food store, they're not going to be raw, but they'll be better. We're in Wisconsin, and we can't buy raw milk here either, but we're now putting together a law, which I think will be passed in Wisconsin, that if you go to a farmer and you buy it off the farm, you can get raw milk. So maybe look for a farmer that's in your area that'd be willing to allow you to have raw milk from the farm. There are some states like California and Washington, the state of Washington, where they can sell raw milk. Oh gosh, I wish we had that here where we were. Raw milk, raw goat milk, be fantastic.
Isn't it true that in France, don't they make a lot of those exquisite cheeses only with raw milks?
Oh, absolutely. Raw milk cheeses, excellent. Yes, absolutely. And you could buy raw milk cheeses in most states. They have to be stored for at least 60 days before they can sell them to make sure there's no bacteria. But raw milk cheeses that have been aged for 60 days are, I think, almost available in every state.
Excellent. Someone's sharing a web page, which I have not checked out and I don't know anything about, but if it might be useful, if you're interested in finding out more about, she said there's a great website called realmilk.com. So if you all are of a mind to take a look and see if that might be something that can answer some more questions or give you more advice on purchasing. All right. Well, Terry, I think we've made it through. I'm just double checking, make sure we didn't miss any questions. I think we got them all. So thank you so much for spending time with us today to learn more about how you eat and what you've learned about the best and most optimal dietary choices to set us up for good health instead of bad health. This was just really informative, and we're already getting some notices in from the Q&A saying thank you so much, excellent training. So kudos to you, Terry, and thanks again for a wonderful presentation.
Oh, my pleasure, because you can change your life if you change your health, change your diet.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you. So for those of you who have more questions, you can always contact Terry at terrytalksnutrition.com. You can sign up for a free weekly newsletter to learn more about natural interventions for health and motivation. Listen to recordings of past seminars. You can also go to YouTube now. We have a YouTube channel called Terry Talks Nutrition where you can listen to past recordings of webinars and watch the slides, so they're very easy and free to use. You can ask Terry your specific questions at Terry Talks Nutrition. There's an area called Ask Terry, so feel free to send your queries to him. So thank you so much. Our next event is on Thursday, June 9th at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. Dr. Peter Josling, all the way from Great Britain, Nothing to Sneeze At, Safe and Effective Allergy Relief. So to You can also visit terrytalksnutrition.com to register. And since you have attended this webinar, I'm sure you'll be getting an email notice of the next upcoming webinar. Dr. Josling is a very interesting speaker. He has lots and lots of very pertinent data for those of you who struggle with year-long or seasonal allergies, and some interventions, some natural interventions, absolutely without side effects, that can put an end to your suffering. So I hope you'll take time out of your busy day to join us again in the future for another Terry Talks Nutrition Educational Webinar. Thanks, everybody, for your kind attention, and until we meet again, good health to you. Bye-bye.